Welcome everyone to the Berlin Select Board meeting. I almost said it.
Wow.
For Monday, June 13th. As a reminder, the meetings of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable television access channel and YouTube. Your voice, your image, and your telephone number may be recorded. Welcome everyone. We have a bunch of hearings tonight. And so why don't we just jump right into it, to the approval of the June 6th minutes.
Motion to approve.
And seconded.
I think we're ready to vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Margaret, is there any correspondence?
Yeah, we have a couple of pieces of correspondence. First, the board received a copy of a letter from Berlin Auto Parts to the Board of Health. It's dated May 2nd. We received this on June 9th. It does appear that Berlin Auto Parts recognizes that there are operational challenges with the loading zone, queuing in the street of trucks and things like that. And they indicate in this letter that they will be working on their procedures.
That's nice.
The other correspondence, the town clerk forwarded to us today, and it's from the DEP, and it's regarding a 2022 Clean Watersheds Need Survey. When I received this, I felt that this is a project that I believe Conservation and Board of Health should collaborate on, as they are both local authorities of water, Board of Health with our wells and Conservation with our watersheds. So I think this is a good project for them to work together on. And yeah, so we received a copy of that today. So I'll follow up with both of them.
Great, thank you. It's the time for a general public comment. Is there anyone in the audience would like to comment on something or make a statement? You can do so by raising your hand. Seeing none at the moment, but while we give people another moment or two to do it, do you want to promote Fred to the front so he can be ready to do his departmental update?
I'm trying multiple times and it's not, but I can open his mic anyhow.
Oh, looks like Fred's moving forward.
Yeah, it's only opening his mic, but or letting him speak without being seen. Margaret, if you want to take a crack at it.
Yeah, I just tried promoting him to panelist. He must be in the highway barn. Challenges. Fred, if you want to leave if you can hear us, if you want to leave your video off and just open your mic, maybe you'll be able to present that way. If he can hear me, I don't know. All right, let's see if I do this.
Is taking much of my
Let
energy
me
to
see if
not try to troubleshoot IT stuff, since that's what I do for a living. And it's like, oh, this is exactly what I worked on like much of today, is internet problems at a site.
don't know. I just asked him if he could open his mic.
Well, he gives it a try. We're obviously not at the time for any of the time certains. Bart, you want to start doing some of your town administrator reports, and then we can potentially go back to Fred if we can find established internet for him.
Yes, I can start anyway. Okay, first, Chris and I, and I can't remember who else, this is terrible. Last week we met with VHB engineers, Carl Ayers and Olivia, who's their bridge engineer. We discussed a timeline for the preliminary cost estimate. There's Fred now.
Hello.
Hey, welcome, Fred.
I'll hold everything I've got.
Yep.
Okay. All right, sorry. So some of the things we got done for the month was the driving simulator did come back to town. It was a real good experience because the guys that have never driven CDL before were able to train driving the plow truck virtually, which was kind of interesting to see, but very beneficial. We were able to get caught up on some of the truck maintenance that was long overdue. A lot of the trucks got serviced. Oh boy.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
you've been good.
All right, I don't know if my camera's still working. My the computer just went wacky. So anyway, we got some brush chip anticipating Sawyer Hill Road getting line striped. Even though that was all set up back in February, there was a communication error. So they overbooked 2 towns. So ours obviously haven't been painted yet. But we did get the crosswalks ready. We got the things all cleaned up and mowed for Memorial Day, even though there was no parade. For the public safety. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yep.
yep, you've been good.
For the public buildings, we just had the routine water testing done. All the furnaces were serviced and just the routine cleaning got done for the buildings as well. I was able to meet with our Chapter 90 guy up in Worcester, Mark O'Hare. He was a big help, which got me to the point where tonight I'm going to ask for the money for the Chapter 90 reconstruction projects so I can submit those. And then we also worked on the job postings and some interviews. Hopefully we'll get some appointments tonight.
Does the Highway 90 stuff require select board action or is?
It
Yes,
does. Yeah,
Yes,
it
ma'am.
exceeds $50,000, so it does require select board action for contracting for larger amounts. Yes.
Okay, here we are. We're back.
Yep. Is there? I thought I looked at it. I didn't see where there was a, total estimated cost 432,856.
Yes, that's correct. And just to give you a little history on the roads that I'm looking to do, Highland Street was last paved in the late 80s, 88, 89. And Randall Road, in that section that we're going to do was back in 94. The average lifespan of the roadway back then was 20 years, and now they're forecasting it to be at the most 15 years. So those roads definitely need to be done.
Are there questions on the Chapter 90?
So Fred, on one of the check boxes, there was a yes for, is any of the work proposed in or within wetland? Conservation aware of this, no problems with it?
Not yet, they haven't. I have to do a, I believe it's going to be a notice of intent because there is a pond up near the horse arena,
Yep.
Steen Benson's horse. That's definitely within that 100 feet. I just figured that, you know, once it was approved, then that would be the time to seek out the conservation.
Yeah, conservation meets every other week. I doubt you'll be able to get on the agenda, what's today, 13th, so they meet on the 15th, and then I think it's only the 1st and 3rd.
Okay.
So their next meeting won't be until July 6th.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can,
I
I don't know,
will,
Margaret, will they make open meeting law to get on the agenda? They have it updated for Wednesday?
For Wednesday, no, because their meeting is at 7. Well, I mean, if they did an appointment for, no, they really should be posting the notice 48 hours in advance. So I would say probably not at this point.
so the next one would be, what's the date in July?
I think it's the 6th.
Fred, I will connect you with Carolyn and Maddie to get you the proper paperwork so you can start on that ahead of time. Oh, it's frozen.
While we're waiting for Fred to rejoin us, that's an interesting pose too, to be president too.
Am I gone?
You're still there.
Yep,
All right.
you're back.
All right. Okay, yeah, I know that the process takes a while. My internet connection's unstable. I'll probably lose you again. So yeah, so if I can start filling that paper out now, I know it's pretty lengthy.
All right, I'll connect you with Carolyn and Maddie on that. And if it's similar to what we had to go through for the municipal parking lot repaving, if you're working within the current layout, hopefully it won't be that complex a task, but I will connect you with them.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And just so you have an idea, I don't know if you all know, not including this year's amount, we have $890,675 available for Chapter 90 through the state.
There are other questions from Chris or Peg?
No, that was my only one.
So just tell me what the motion should be.
I think the motion is something like Margaret's on mute, but is to approve conditional upon Conservation Commission sign off.
$432,856 for the work outlined in the project request form.
So move.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret. And a second.
I think we're ready to vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Very,
Um,
very happy that that Fred and the Highway Department are moving on Chapter 90 projects. This is very good.
And then,
Good job,
Margaret,
Fred.
are all the appointments you have highway appointments?
4 out of 5 of them are. You want to jump to those?
I was just going to do those. We have a couple minutes, but to jump to those so Fred can actually hear us approve all of those, and assuming we approve them, and move on. And so I know that's new business, but since we can't do much else until for another 3 minutes, go for it, Margaret.
Okay, so I am giving the board notices of my intent to appoint 5 individuals. The first 2 are seasonal landscapers, Trent Petard and Jack Roy. As seasonal landscapers, both at grade 4, step 7, $17.07 an hour. The next is Christopher Morse as a driver laborer. This is a full-time position. At a grade 7, step 2, moving to a grade 7, step 3 upon successful completion of the 90-day probationary period. And Thomas Bradley, heavy motor equipment operator, driver, laborer, mechanic, at a grade 8, step 2, $25.97 an hour, moving to grade 8, step 3 upon successful completion of the 90-day probationary period. And finally, we have an alternate wiring inspector, Jonathan Shepard, who would be paid $50 per inspection.
Motion to appoint those 5 individuals upon Margaret's recommendation.
Seconded.
And then does that fill all the openings in the highway department?
That fills the openings in the highway department.
Yay.
Yay, Fred.
So let's take, I think we're ready for a vote then. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Congratulations, Fred and Margaret, for filling some more positions in the town.
Thank you.
Well done, Fred. Well done, Personnel Committee and whoever else was involved.
Right.
Everybody.
There's a lot of people
Everybody.
involved with it. Thanks. Are there any questions for Fred? Any more questions?
We'll
I have just one.
Yep.
Okay.
On the very last page, who actually signs for the select board?
There's space for all 3 members to sign, but I believe the board could authorize their chair to sign on the board's behalf.
Okay.
Motion to have Scott sign on the board's behalf.
Haha, that means he's gotta get down there.
I
Stone,
know.
second. Yay.
Yay. Sure. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Welcome to chairhood. Stone Eye.
Yeah, it's one of those, I usually remember it like at 10 o'clock at night while lying in bed. It's like, I was supposed to go to the town offices today and sign something.
Somebody will
Okay.
just have to remind you.
Yep. Yeah, Mary is getting much better at reminding me when I forget more than a day or 2 in a row.
Does
Great.
that mean,
Yeah.
just one quick question, does that mean we may have an opening on personnel or no?
Mhm.
It does mean that there'll be an opening on personnel if Tom accepts the position, because bylaws prohibit a member of a personnel committee from serving in any other official capacity.
Okay.
Great. Again, thanks a lot, Fred, and I might at some point stick my nose in to see, as a purely volunteer basis, what I might do to understand and help resolve internet issues.
Yes, that'd be perfect because it's been going on all day.
Yep.
I have no idea what the problem is.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. And then we can get ready for our 7:15 Highway Barn Solar Power Purchase Agreement proposal. So I think Beth and Sarah are both in the audience. Other people who need to come forward for that.
Peg's met Beth. I don't know if Scott and Chris, you've had the opportunity to meet Beth. Beth is fantastic to work with as an owner's agent. So
No, but I'm quite excited about this because I remember being on FinCom where we were promised solar panels on the Highway Barn from the beginning. So,
Me too.
right.
so here are Beth and Sarah.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Happy Monday. So Margaret, you want us to get started?
Yep.
Do you want to tee it up?
If the board's ready, please do. Are you able to share your screen, Beth?
I am.
Okay.
Up both of them at the beginning. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So I thought I'd just give you a quick introduction of my firm. As Margaret had indicated, my firm was selected to be an owner's agent for the town, supporting the town as it looked at renewable generating opportunities across various parcels in the community. Margaret had applied for a municipal energy technical assistance grant from the Department of Energy Resources and was successful in securing that grant. And that grant is supporting the work that I'm doing on your behalf. My firm is a woman-owned energy management solutions firm specializing in energy management, performance contracting solutions, traditional renewable energy solutions, energy analysis, and energy procurement. We are certified by the Commonwealth Supplier Diversity Office as a woman-owned business, and we are actually also on state contract PRF 74. We were selected as part of a competitive process. Oops, kept a slide and didn't change it. That's bad. So let's just go to the next slide. So I thought it would be beneficial to give you a quick background as to how we got to where we are today. As I mentioned, we were selected as part of a competitive process that Margaret undertook, but also in support of a municipal energy technical assistance grant received from the DOER. We were engaged to serve as your agent and your facilitator, to sit on your side of the fence, work with Sarah and others to specify the project that you're looking for under the terms and conditions of an agreement that works for both parties. The town had identified various properties for consideration of solar with an initial focus, as you said, Mr. Chair, of the Highway Barn, while additional analysis underway to address integrating the benefits of on-site solar with existing net metering agreements that the town has executed in the past. Because there's just a certain amount of capacity you're able to fully absorb before you're not able to realize the full economic value. We initiated a site review and investigation for rooftop solar with Select Energy. And I reached out to Sarah, called her in and said, here are the parcels we're looking at. And in fact, we were looking at the time at, and still are, the town offices, the elementary school, and the Highway Barn. Select provided a conceptual design of about 96.5 kilowatts DC for solar on the Highway Barn. And Sarah will speak to that a little bit more as we move through this presentation. I thought it would be beneficial to highlight sort of what drives me to feel that renewable generation is an appropriate solution, particularly as you look at on-site solar behind the meter, which is literally spinning the meter backwards, and where the benefits come from, because to me, it's sort of a three-legged solution. There's educational benefits that I think is crucial for us at this time, as we look at where we are with fossil fuel cost issues, as well as what it's doing to our planet. There are the environmental benefits, and then of course the economic benefits. The educational component is, I think, a very important one to select from my experience working with them on behalf of other public sector communities. They will provide a URL link to a data monitoring system that will provide access to near real-time information on the generation of solar from the system, along with specific sort of public-facing environmental attributes, number of CO2 reductions, and a few other metrics. They're always willing to work with you to support workshops and seminars for various stakeholders. And I won't speak for Sarah, but my experience working with Select is they clearly recognize that your student body is their future employees, that there is that opportunity. So they look very, they support your efforts of educating your community. In terms of the environmental benefits, that 96.5 kWdc solar array will generate a little over 106,000 kilowatt hours a year in the first year, which offsets about 83 tons of carbon dioxide. This represents the equivalent reductions from greenhouse gas emissions of over 187,000 miles driven, or CO2 emissions of about 8,500 gallons of gasoline consumed, or the equivalent, this is my favorite metric because we can all envision it, of almost 9.2 million smartphones charged. So it has a significant, even a small system can have a significant benefit. Select will design, build, own, operate, and maintain the rooftop arrays at the highway barn. The generation will be delivered directly behind the building's existing electric meter. It will literally spin the meter backwards. So the building will be buying electricity provided by Select from the sun, and the balance will be bought from the grid. The solar generation directly used by the barn will reduce the barn's purchase of traditional electricity from the grid, and therefore the barn will purchase 106,500. I think it's 106.5, not 165, less from the grid. This will result in avoided cost savings from the purchase of less supply and avoided delivery charges. So you're buying less from the grid and the utility is delivering fewer kilowatt hours. Any excess generation that will occur in the summer or other times of year that the building isn't using as much as the solar array is generating will be delivered to National Grid, and National Grid will apply a financial credit on the highway barn's electricity bill, similar to the net metering arrangements that you have with the other projects that are providing some financial benefits to the community. Any financial credits from the excess generation can be applied to any of the town accounts. It can be applied to the town office or directly back to the highway barn if there's capacity to enjoy those bill credits. So in general, again, I said, as I mentioned, it's about a 96.5 kWdc, corresponding 66.6 kWac. It will generate about a little over 106,000 kilowatt hours a year. The building's estimated consumption is about 122,000 kilowatt hours a year. So it is generally offsetting the majority of the building's annual usage. Select provided two options for consideration. They provided a fixed rate option where the rate is set, as you can see it, at for the block of the SMART program, if we are successful in getting in as quickly as we can. The rate is set fixed at 13.8 cents, and it would be fixed for the entire term of the opportunity. Or an escalating rate that starts at 12.9 cents, escalating 1% per year compounded. So as you can see, the economics are pretty similar, but obviously it depends on where you think energy is going, and in either case, it's a hedge. So this is something that a significant amount of due diligence needs to happen before these numbers can be finalized. I would suggest, and I'm sure Sarah will agree, that these are at this point indicative until they have an opportunity to get in, do their due diligence, apply for the appropriate entitlement programs, and then finalize those details. But in general, this is generally what we're looking at. In terms of those benefits on a fixed rate basis, as you can see, there's a sort of an economic benefit of about $1,500 in the first year. On an escalating rate, as you can see, you're getting greater benefits because the power purchase rate is lower and then it's escalating. So you get more upfront value than you do in the future, as opposed to the fixed rate where you get less upfront benefit, but greater upfront benefits into the future. And my analysis assumes a 1% annual increase, the same slope of increase that Sarah used in her analysis to come up with an escalated rate. And my 1% is assuming energy prices escalate annually by 1% per year, as does your avoided cost. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to talk to you about Select, the program, how they approach these problems. And I know Sarah would be delighted to address any of the other issues of the the information that I've presented so far.
Great, thanks, Beth. That was a great summary. Yeah, so Select is headquartered in Hopkinton. We've been around for 12 plus years, about 12 years. We've done over 600 projects in the state. We focus mainly on Massachusetts. We do projects in Connecticut and Rhode Island too, but we really know what, the smart incentive and the state incentive in Massachusetts can be complicated. So we do well here with the knowledge base that we have. We have about 85 employees now. We're growing pretty fast, and we're DCAM certified. We, as Beth said, we design, we build, we maintain, we have a service group to monitor solar arrays. And so we'd own it and operate it, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Basically, that's kind of the sweet spot of what we do. I think we can go to the next slide. So one of the things that Select is able to offer, which can especially be valuable to municipalities, is we have been chosen as the Power Options solar provider. Power Options is one of the largest energy buying consortiums in Massachusetts, in New England. They were selected and authorized by the Mass CEC to conduct a solicitation. They do this for all their members. They do it for natural gas and electricity and solar. So they have conducted a large solicitation to choose a solar company to provide solar power for its members. And what this means is, if you're a Power Options member, you can use their competitive RFP that they've already done to get solar, meaning you get to work with us and you don't have to put out an RFP, which saves a lot of time. They manage our pricing. They are advocates for their over 500 members. They've pre-negotiated the contract, so it's fair, and they're able to leverage their 500 members to get good pricing. So that's just like kind of the it's usually an easier way to get a project done, I guess. And then, so what's the next slide here? We have, so as Beth was talking, what the solar structure that we're offering is a power purchase agreement. So it's a 20-year agreement. We put in the array, as I said, and you just pay us for the power. And the benefit is you get clean power, you get some of those educational components that Beth had mentioned. You save on your energy costs. And I will say that, those energy costs that Beth had did assume an electric supply contract. So your power could even be more, could be up to 20 cents if you didn't have an electric supply contract. It also, the savings sheet showed also, we typically don't account for demand charges. Is this a demand meter? Yeah, right. And it can add to that savings, but it's not, we can't predict it, so we don't model it, but it can be an added savings to what Beth has shown. So we're also able, we take that smart incentive program, whatever block we're in. We also are able to monetize the 26% federal tax credit. So that's how we can get you lower pricing, because obviously, you know, towns and cities can't utilize that, and we can. So we pass some of that savings through in the lower electrical rate that we provided. And I think the next one is a picture of the design. Yes, it is a little bit fuzzy, sorry. So we maxed out the roof to put as much solar on there as we could. This accounts for about 96% of the use at the building. So you will have some extra credits, not a whole lot, but extra credits in like June, July, August, when it's, I think from what I saw from the electrical bill, isn't using as much. So yeah, it's just a nice little system that'll crank out some power for your whole building, 96% of it. And let's see, did I close the rest? Okay, so the way we're able to, first of all, let me go through this and I'll answer any questions, but the way we're able to get you your smart incentive is by signing a letter of intent if you'd like to go forward, or we can just enter into a contract. We sign you up for that smart incentive, that's what gives you this lower cost. And we can hold on to that for 18 months before we build the array. So we've got some time to do that, but I think kind of Beth and I can go through this together. I mean, to discuss the process and take your questions and see, you know, see what you have to ask and how we can maybe get this going for you.
And if I may just point out, as Sarah just said, there's a series of sort of entitlement activities that need to happen for all these types of projects in order to plug it into the grid. Even if you're plugging it in behind your building, you're ultimately plugging it into the grid. The SMART program, as you folks may be aware, is it's entitled the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program. I think they came up with the acronym, and then put words to it because it's an awkward named program, but it is basically the solar incentive program in Massachusetts. And it provides to projects a fixed incentive that is calculated based on this declining block utility tariff that is the implementation mechanism for this program. The nice thing for public entities is that the Commonwealth made the determination in setting up its guidelines that it wanted to give municipalities, public entities, the opportunity to get into the queue faster than other projects in order to provide the greatest level of benefits to the public sector. And they did that partially to provide some additional support to municipalities, but also recognizing that the public sector process is perhaps sometimes a longer process because of all the appropriate approvals and necessary steps than it would be for a private entity. So to the extent the town is interested in moving forward and executes a simple letter of intent, we would, certainly work with town council, a simple letter of intent that will give Select the ability to file its application to try to lock in those incentives as soon as possible. National Grid, as you know, has a very large footprint and has moved through most of the blocks. With each block, there's a 4% decline from block to block. The nice thing is for behind the meter installations, that decline, and it's a decline in incentives. So if basically whatever the incentive is in block 1, you multiply that by 0.96 for block 2, then 0.96 for block 3. And as you can see, as the incentives decline, the revenue to the project also declines. One of the big changes that the state recently made in the SMART program is for behind the meter installations, because it's a priority of theirs. That decline will reduce to 2%. It has reduced to 2% from block to block, starting in block 9. And behind National Grid, you're already in that block 9. So while there has been some erosion of the economic opportunities or the financial incentives, clearly they're still sufficient enough to make a project viable for a company like Select to come in, want to own it, finance it, operate it, and provide you the electric generation at an attractive rate.
Well, we are a little over the time we allotted, but I definitely wanted to have some time for questions. So Peg or Chris, do you have questions? Go ahead, Peg.
So Beth or Sarah, your line says structural engineering analysis for a rooftop installation. If you find that the roof is not sufficient and can't hold the weight of the panels, what's plan B? Will they be a ground array?
I can look into a ground array. We would give you the option to pay to make it structurally sufficient, or we would just say we can
Okay.
find another place for solar.
Okay. And
That-
then,
That was
go
one
ahead,
of
I'm sorry.
that was just one of my questions too, Peg, because those were the two options that when we built the
Yeah.
building that came up.
Right. And then timing. So once, let's assume that, the letter of intent is signed and everyone's off and running, what could be, and the roof is good, what could be the soonest that we'd see installation of the panels on the roof?
There's a couple
If-
things to consider there. We do need to get interconnection approval, and that on National Grid can take, I don't know, for a system like this, it would not take very long. So a couple, 6 to 8 weeks, Beth, would you say? I mean, Maybe-
It depends.
maybe 3 months.
It's one of those wild cards, but to the extent it's deemed to be a system that does not require what's called an impact study, because you're going to be basically absorbing most of the generation and it's a small system. It could, 6 to 8 weeks is probably a reasonable time frame. If it requires a system impact study, it could be 6 to 9 months.
Right, and then, we have stock, so actual build time, a week, wouldn't take very long. Week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I understand what it's like to be at National Grid's mercy, huh?
Oh, boy, sometimes. Sometimes it goes great. I put one in a couple weeks ago and they approved it within a couple weeks, so that was some good news.
On your
You oughta
economic,
have- No, I was just gonna say, you ought to see how long it takes them to get a pole in.
Oh, right.
right. And so if I understand the project again is that the town would not own the solar panels. We'd basically you'd be putting electric generation on the roof. The town would buy it at, let's just assume fixed rate for the sake of argument at 13.8 cents a kilowatt. And that our current rate, not counting delivery charges, is on this as 15.3. So it's about a penny a kilowatt is about what our savings are looking like.
Correct.
Yeah, your current avoided cost is a little bit more, is about 15.36 cents per kilowatt hour. And as Sarah mentioned before, this per kilowatt hour rate does not include the demand charges that you're paying in the building, and you are paying demand charges. And the difficult, one of the nice benefits of the Power Options program is Select guarantees the generation that it is estimated to produce for your building. It's very difficult to guarantee demand savings because even though I would expect you will see reduced demand, actual physical, meter demand,
Right.
because demand charges are based on the highest 15-minute period in the month. If you have a whole sunny month, but a 15-minute period with a big dark cloud, that sets your demand charge for the month. And really the solar can't benefit that.
And then is the town just buying this outright instead of running a lease just not an option for us?
If you have funds available, that's up to, go ahead.
Because if we're looking for future cost avoidance, if the town owns it, then instead of having instead of paying 13.8 cents per kilowatt, we'd pay nothing per kilowatt. Because we'd own the solar panels ourselves.
We
Mark,
also
you're-
we'd also need to operate and maintain them ourselves.
Well, operation is we just let the sun in, but maintenance, and you can bake in maintenance contracts into some of this stuff as well.
And you would also want to plan for capital replacement of the inverters, which will go about midway through this term, that you'll likely need to replace.
And then what do we have for emergency power backup at the highway barn? So if National Grid goes out, because if National Grid goes out, the generators right now are not able to send to the grid, mostly to protect the line workers, which is a really good thing. We'd like line workers to stay safe. But what is our, do we have a generator there? Do we have? Because I think this might be a great time to put in sort of batteries that this could charge to help cover some of that stuff as well.
I don't want to speak for Fred, but I think he's having trouble unmuting, but
Right.
I believe that we have a generator at the highway barn.
I thought so as well. And you can always add the batteries later on into the project. You don't have to do it at the same time you've done solar panels, because both I and others have done that type in our personal homes.
So
I will say with the option to purchase too, oh, sorry, Beth. You do give up you don't get to recognize the federal tax incentive savings. So, that is something that we are able to pass through to you. So usually with municipalities, of course, we do offer a purchase option, but it just, unless you have like use it or lose it money, it can be spent elsewhere, and then we can put this in for you and take care of it for you. But, I'm open to either.
yeah, I think the other piece, if I may, is in the agreement, the long-term lease PPA, there will be the option for the town to purchase the system at different times of the term.
And then Fred, you had your hand up?
Yes, actually, we do have a generator here at the highway garage.
Okay, good. Peg, Chris, how would you like to proceed? We are almost 15 over, but leave it hanging. Do we bring this back under old business a week so we can think it over? Do we do motions now?
I'm ready to go with a motion now. I mean, this has been a long time coming. I think we're all, that's my pet peeve, seeing those absorbent rates, the bills that come out of the highway barn. So everything looks well laid out, well explained. I don't see a reason to wait and push it out another 2 weeks.
Can I just ask? Can I
It's gonna make
just
$100
ask?
a difference on the month on the bill, maybe a little bit more. I'm trying to do the math. 10,000 at a penny each. But yes, Chris.
Oh, I just wanted to ask if Margaret had any kind of recommendation before we vote.
So my recommendation would be along the lines of what Peg is thinking. I am concerned that this town would not have capacity enough to be able to maintain the systems, own and maintain the systems on their own. I do think this is a good alternative where the town can reduce its carbon footprint. I'd be inclined to recommend this. I understand what Scott's saying, but I still have the same concern that I think we'd be challenged at owning and operating and maintaining our own solar systems on our roofs.
Yeah, I think I agree. Not quite sure how the motion would be worded, though.
I think if we look at the next step slide, I think we could vote to start
Enter into
entering
a letter of
into a
agreement.
solar power purchase agreement, a lease agreement with Select Energy. Because I think that allows us to put sort of formally these numbers on paper, allow them to be willing to do the little like I dotting and T crossing that will sort of fine grain it a little bit more.
Okay, then I would make a motion to enter into a solar power purchase and lease agreement with Select Energy.
Seconded.
I think we've had the discussion. I keep wanting to say all in favor. Ready to vote? Hawkins, aye.
Heath, aye.
Stone Eye.
I will follow up
Okay.
with Beth on next steps for the board then, and the board can continue its conversation about expanding its solar in the future at your next meeting.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Appreciate your help and everything you've done.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Have a great
Take
night,
care.
folks.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. And then if we could promote, I think Victoria is next on the agenda, right? Sorry, I'm having to close those slides. 6:30, UM Boston survey, COA, social service, Victoria. And anyone she thinks should be added to it as well.
So the running, so
Hi,
do you think
everyone.
that Victoria will have a PowerPoint presentation? Just saying.
I'm coming.
So.
Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hi,
Victoria.
Victoria.
How are you?
Good.
Well, you
How
know
are
me
you?
like a book. You know me like a book, Peg. So. All right. So, so as you guys had been saying, we are talking tonight about a community needs assessment for the town. So UMass Boston has a gerontology institute, and what they do is they have worked with 40 other local cities and towns in Massachusetts. And what they do is they send out questionnaires to constituents of these towns, and they're able to really hone in on their research to meet the needs of a town. So some towns use this research solely for a present, like, you know, a needs assessment for like a senior center. Some of them look at like community needs as a whole, some of them looking at aging in place. I think for us, I think that we could have a study kind of based around all three of those components. And what this would do is it would allow us to have all of our Berlin residents 18 and older be given the opportunity to complete the questionnaire. It allows for us to get a comparison of other cities and towns in our area, as well as other cities and towns similar size to Berlin. And the questions that they really focus in on is for transportation and housing needs, basically safely aging in place, any mental health needs, which include any social, emotional, and physical well-being. And this would also include substance abuse, as well as a need for the senior center. Within their questionnaires and their research, they also get a focus group of about 50 people within these towns as well, and that they use them to, I think, get more qualitative data, more in-depth data. If we were to go down this road, they would be going live with the questionnaire in the beginning of 2023 with finalization in spring of 2023. But what they would do in the meantime is they would spend basically fall, starting around September, October, gathering the research and getting more of the demographic data for Berlin, as well as getting the information needed to compare Berlin to other cities and towns. So the question really is, well, why do we need this? Well, as you all know, Berlin is a population that is quickly aging. We do already have a population of about 30 to 35% who are already 60 and older, and that's only going to continue to grow. And really at this point, we don't have any data to say whether or not they're aging really safely in their homes in the community. I suspect not for a lot of cases. I do think that there are a lot of people in town who are just trying to make it by with what they have. But again, you know, until we have data, we would, you know, need to address this. And of course, since COVID, you know, we have come to realize that there's additional problems, that there are more mental health needs, more, you know, transportation needs, housing needs, things of this nature that would need to be addressed. This gives us really some solid data and input from the townspeople. It really gives us a chance to, you know, again, hear their voices. It will show us what deficiency Berlin has, if any. Again, not to say that Berlin isn't a nice little town, but every place has its imperfections, and we would want to know this now. And it really also helps us to see, you know, is Berlin being well served by the state? I don't honestly know with the resources that we have in place, including, you know, the aging services in North Central Massachusetts, between, you know, the two counties, you know, with WRTA and us being kind of sandwiched in between with Middlesex County. I don't really know, and I don't really believe that we're being fully serviced the way that we should be. And I think having a needs assessment done will also give us information that if we needed to write to our, you know, our higher ups, our, you know, at the State Department or something like that, we could show them like, listen, we have this data in place showing us that this is not meeting the needs of our town, and we need you to help us help our residents. So why we should do this is, again, giving us information regarding our needs and our ideas to move forward. And I do think that this really gives Berliners a chance to be heard. Again, I know questionnaires can be sometimes grueling, but I think with this questionnaire, it's going to ask things in a way that we haven't really had a chance to ask before. And I do think as well that, if UMass Boston is conducting this study, and as opposed to just, either Council on Aging or the Housing Committee or anything like that, there's also a little layer of anonymity there. So we may get more honest, true feedback. And this information, I think, really can benefit, almost all departments or boards or committees in town. I mean, Council on Aging wants to know, and Social Services wants to know where we would need to focus our efforts. Public Safety needs to know this information so they can, make sure that we have what's needed and that they know what to expect when going on calls. Highway could benefit from knowing, like, what houses, have, rougher driveways, or, what people aren't going to be able to, go out and benefit. And then even down to like the tax, for taxes, the Treasury and the accounting office, like we would want to know, like, are people really living close to their margins? Are they really, at a point where they're, it's pretty tight for them financially and they're having a hard time surviving? This is all information that we would want to know. And that like I said, I think that this is information that could broadly, impact, the town of, in a positive, I think, as a whole. And then, looking also for the select board, I know that this is part of your goals and objectives, is really to look at services for seniors and making sure that we address kind of the senior needs of town, and that, we do have ARPA funding that can be designated for this project. And really just also looking towards the future as well, that, for you to get funding for any future projects, we need data. And this data would be wonderful to help us, go and approach, if we needed, say, for example, money for ADA purposes, we could, apply for ADA funding. Or if we needed, say, for example, additional funding for health and mental health, which, heads up, we do need. Again, this data gives us some more backbone. It gives us some oomph behind it. So when we're talking about things, it's, we can talk about, what we're perceiving, but we can also say, here's the data backing up what we think we should need. And then just to, in case you all haven't had a chance to see this yet, this is their, I'm just trying to load up the page, but they have a website where they basically talk about all of the different cities and towns that they have worked with. And as you can kind of tell here, which I think is kind of interesting, is that, we're really in a place where not really a lot of cities and towns nearby have actually been used. And I think that that could also be a benefit, because as you can see, like Sudbury and Littleton are really the closest towns that have used this service already, that, they've been able to take that data to move themselves forward. And I mean, you can kind of tell that, where we're located, there's nothing around that's tried it. And I think it would be interesting to get this research now, because who knows if, say, down the road, like another community wanted to get information, would be curious to see what they also have. And just one last point is that these two points up here, these are regional reports that they did. And this may be something, again, for the future that maybe, Berlin would want to participate with, our, local cities and towns as well, to maybe do a regional report and see, has needs been met, since our report on this. So that is what I had for that. And I just want to answer any questions.
Okay, Chris, do you have questions?
So Victoria, it goes without saying you're a blessing to the town of Berlin, and I don't know how we found you or how you found us. So I will continue to sell your praises to whoever will listen to me for that. This is amazing, this stuff that you have. So what would be next steps? A motion from us, approval from us?
Yes.
You go, what?
So they, so I did meet with Dr. Coyle. She's basically one of the head researchers for this project. I met with her and one of her assistants last week. They sent me over a draft contract and just basically basic terms. It's nothing that the board would have to, it was meant just for you guys to be aware of basically what are the terms and conditions that the university spells out. If you guys wanted to proceed with this, what we can do is I obviously would have Margaret take an in-depth look of the contract, and they would expect payment. The way that they do it is the project itself costs about $30,000. You do half of the payment upfront, and then you do the other half at completion. And we talked about some of the logistics as well. I think part of what I like about this too is Dr. Coyle and they also mentioned that you can do some customization with the questioning. And I think that this also gives us an opportunity to, I'm not saying we add 80 questions to this questionnaire, but if, say, for example, like, we could add 5 or 10 questions, I think we really could hit home for some of the, like I had mentioned earlier, like, if, hypothetically your taxes went up like $1 or $2, per, with the tax rate going up, is that going to impact your livelihood even more? Are you going to be barely scraping by? I had talked to Jim over in the veterans office, and we had talked about maybe having some questions about vets, because we know that we have a lot of vets in town, both young and old. And, again, making sure that we feel like that they're also getting their needs met. Like I said, I think that this part of it would be, very beneficial to the town. And she said, if we wanted to do any kind of customization, or if there was something that the town really wanted to hit home on, we could do. At this point, like I said, I think Berlin is taking steps in the right direction, but I mean, we can't, the Council on Aging ban cannot be the only transportation in town for our seniors, and we can only do so much. I cannot be the only like mental health social services person on staff. Like I can't do it by myself. We know that these needs are here. We know that that there's a lot of seniors who, yes, they may be financially stable, and I'm thrilled for them, but for every one of those, we have another one who's, it's really hit home, and especially with inflation. We have a lot of people that, it just, like I said, we've seen the rates of depression go up. We've seen the rates of, substance use go up, and it's not going to go down, unfortunately. And we don't, like I said, because Berlin's kind of caught between Middlesex and Worcester County, I do think Berlin falls through the cracks. And even Dr. Coyle said the same thing. She's like, it sounds like it. And, while we love Berlin and we want the best for Berlin, we are one of 352 towns in the Commonwealth. So it's like, now we've got to fight with every other city and town to get this funding. And it's, you need something to basically almost give Berlin a heads up, because the population is so small, most people are going to be like, well, you're tiny, why do you need this? Like, get 3 of the towns together and then we can chat. And it's like, but no, like, this is the problem now. Like, this needs to get fixed now. And if we can have the data that says, listen, here's the problem, here's what we're showing, we're doing the best we can with what we have, it's not enough, then I think that that's going to open up a lot of people's eyes, and that's going to be hard to ignore.
Well, and Victoria, I can second that. I mean, last year, Margaret helped me greatly, and I sent out a crap ton of ADA grant requests. And you know what? I cut and pasted from the ADA document, which had specifics and everything on it as to why we need ADA money for town. And we didn't get one, because we're like this big compared to everybody else around us. So yeah, that's a need. It's a need for the town. Yep.
So
go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to ask if there are any grants available.
For this funding, I don't believe there to be.
Okay.
But it could lead to funding from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. It could lead to funding from ADA. It could also be tied to our housing production plan. We've got the housing survey going on now. All of these plans could complement each other, and building that data could be excellent backup for future grant applications.
Yeah, I bet even with no tweaking of questions, that the planning board would love to see the answers to whatever comes out of it.
Absolutely.
I've
Do
you have a plan of where the 30,000 is coming from?
I would recommend, well, as Victoria said, this was a project that was listed on the ARPA requests.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that the board consider using ARPA funds for this project, because this project would definitely fit into the bucket that you defined for ARPA.
Yeah.
And I think
one-time
too,
cost that helps us better understand the town, better coordinate services, and potentially say put us in a better position for future funding. It hits all of those buckets, I think, pretty solidly. Yes.
and the cool thing too about the project with this, especially with Berlin, is that normally Dr. Coyle was saying when they approach a town to do this type of work, they basically only reach out to 5,000 people total. And for a lot of the bigger cities and towns, that's only a fragment of the population. Because Berlin's so small, I had asked her, I said, listen, I said, that we're under 5,000 people. I said, could we have this be for 18 and older? And she said, yes. So it's like, we're also going to be one of the few cities and towns that are actually going to get a huge swath, potentially of responses, just because the fact that like an 18-year-old is going to see things very differently than a 70-year-old. And that data is vital. Because I mean, I would love to know that. And I'm sure everybody, watching would love to know that too, because we need to know, we're all thinking of different things and different problems. And like I said, I'm thrilled that we're going to have this opportunity potentially. So.
And so Margaret, the proposed next steps would be?
Proposed next steps would be for the board to determine whether or not it would like to use ARPA funds to fund this project. And if so, we could proceed with the procurement and get going on a contract with them.
Just
The
one
board
quick
is the
question.
final, I'm sorry, the board is the final decision maker on the use of ARPA funds, so.
Yes. Go ahead, Chris.
So Victoria, is Dr. Coyle, is that a Berlin resident by any chance?
I
No.
don't believe so. No.
Okay, all right. All right, I will make a motion to support Victoria's recommendation of the UMass Boston Gerontology Institute community and use ARPA funds to support it.
Second.
And signature by the chair.
And signature by the chair.
That's two,
Hopefully it's
Scott.
all the same day.
This is gonna take a little while. It might take a week or more to get this finalized.
Not seeing much more discussion. I think we're ready to vote. Hawkins, aye.
Well, good, you said aye after all that. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye, long overdue. Thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome. And I'll keep you guys posted. And if there's anything particularly in terms of topics or anything like that that you would want them to hit on this study, just let me know and I'll make sure that they get that information as well.
Yeah,
We
I
have to
assume
come
we'll
up with
sort of
a,
draft the study before it actually goes out a little bit. But yes, I'm excited about what this could show us.
and definitely we'll have to brainstorm and come up with ideas, because you don't want this entire effort to have kind of like voting, 3% of the town respond. So do you have a get together at the town hall where everyone sits and fills out the questionnaire? We bring snacks, for that, but we've got to make sure that this gets out and gets done. And Victoria, as you were saying, an 18-year-old, who may be looking at an elderly parent, folks our age, folks older than us. So we've got to hit that entire spectrum.
And I'm going to connect Victoria with Tim Wheeler of the planning board so they can kind of join forces. So Victoria can take a look at the housing survey and we can kind of complement both of those projects.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you, Victoria.
Have a good night.
That brings us to 8 o'clock, if I slow down my clock a little bit, and time for the hearing on the BMS sign. We could bring, I don't know who's in the audience for that.
I think Tim Wheeler was in the audience for that last presentation, so that's good. I've given him a heads up.
I won't be surprised.
Hi, John.
Good evening. How is everybody?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. I appreciate your time this evening. I know you've been through a lot already. You've got a long agenda. I will try to be brief. It's not usually one of my strengths, but I will do my best. A real quick recap on why I'm here. In November of 2020, the sign out in front of Berlin Memorial School, the message board, blew over in a windstorm. It was like so many other, it just was one of those COVID kinds of things. And we thought right away, well, let's get a nice new sign. And the new sign will be great because we could make it electric and we could have messages that I don't have to replace once a month. This is going to be a wonderful thing. And so we started to research it. The goal was, and I was saying this to the zoning board the other night, I love that our school is kind of a center of town. It's a center of communication. So much happens in and around Berlin Memorial School. Probably half the town passes by it every single day. And we thought an electric message board, which could do more than one message at a time, and wouldn't have to be set up by me in the freezing cold, would be a step forward. So, because we're diligent people, we researched it and we found a sign that we liked and we were all ready to go. And we realized, oh, there's probably a couple of other steps. It turns out that we have a problem with several zoning bylaws. We're too big, we're too bright, we're too this, we're too that. And we're working with the zoning board. But before I can even talk to them, it turns out we also want to put this fabulous sign or some other sign on town property. The old sign was on town property as well. So we didn't even give that a thought, but Margaret's kind of steered me a little bit here to kind of keep me on the right track. So what I've actually come to the select board tonight for two things. One is to ask your permission formally to place a sign to be determined on town property right at the edge of South Street, similar to where the old one was. Although they're thinking of bringing it forward to the, I think it would be the south side of the school drive, so that it's closer to an electric pole. And then the other piece of this, and I'm not sure that I'm making a formal request so much as kind of planting the seed. One of the discussions we had with the zoning commission or the zoning board was that signs that serve a municipal purpose have a broader range of options than a sign that would be purely for the school. And my goal has been to be able to advertise in addition to when parents' night is to also be able to say when town meeting is, and to advertise voting day and things that are happening in our library and things that are happening at 17 Carter, to continue to kind of build that relationship with the community. So should such a sign get built, I would hope to get your support on that. But tonight, I guess my formal request is for you to consider allowing us to put a sign on town property at the end of the school driveway right at South Street.
Chris, Peg, do you have questions?
Well,
John, go ahead,
ahead.
Chris.
no,
Nope.
go ahead, Peg.
Chris, go ahead.
All right.
I get to arbitrate that, right?
Well, I have been attending the ZBA meetings because I am the liaison to that committee. And so I have seen some of the background on the sign. The first thing that kind of hit me was the cost of the sign, which is rather high. I don't know what signs, the general cost of a sign like the one you had before was, but this one's sort of exorbitant, I think. And one of the things that I noticed with the old sign was that even that sign was very distracting. I could never read the whole thing. I'd have to go by twice in order to read it. So I don't know that it would need to have the ability to scroll or have more words or anything of that sort. I don't think we want to have distracted drivers on South Street. Let's see, I had written down a few things here. So are there things that the building commissioner had said in his letter where, I mean, are there things that you just can't live without? Does it need to be lit? Does it need to be bigger? I guess that would be some of my questions.
So, and I should say this, and Chris, you heard me say it the other night, the school's relationship with the town has always been so positive that I don't want anybody to misunderstand my intention. We will install the sign that the town is comfortable with. So that's not, can it be smaller? I think with a different company, part of the challenge with the size is just the number of lines. We wanted to be able to have enough to do like 2 dates at a time. So think like half of what we used to do. A lot of the sign is actually more decorative. So there's the blue jay at the top, which puts it too high, which was one of the issues. And we can take the blue jay off. We did not want something flashy, but I do love the blue jay. Several people had concerns, and in fact, I was surprised not to hear earlier about the electric piece of it. We are able to control that so that it can be turned on in the morning and off in the evening, because the town's always been sensitive to light around the school. We have deflectors on the building lights. so that they shine down, and very supportive of that as well. It will be easier for the school, and I think a little more helpful for the town. I think so. It's easier to keep up to date. But again, it's more, how does this school fit within the broader community? And is this something that we need? And to kind of pursue that, I needed to get through this step first.
Yeah.
The other parts of it, you raised questions, and it's part of it's just the nature of the town. I always want to call it our town. I don't actually live in Berlin. I have to keep remembering that.
That's okay. We like that.
I feel like I live there. And I've been proud to be here for the last 10 years. So that's been a real treat. But again, we want something that everybody's going to be, that most people are going to be comfortable with. I don't think you can please everybody.
No, probably not. When they first got the other sign, I think it may have been purchased by Link.
Really?
And then I believe they were the ones who changed the sign like weekly. I don't know when that all changed. Where now you are the one who has to change
I
it.
have been changing the sign. So it was Link for a while, and then we had a problem with volunteers. And then we tried to use some other staff. And there was a problem with spelling. And so it's easier for me just to go out there and do it myself. I get a little controlling about some things, and it's really embarrassing when the elementary school sign has misspellings on it.
That's true. I would too, actually.
I was actually wondering when that sign went up. I know it's not original to the building.
No, it is not. No, it is not. I think when the sign that was in front of the building kind of fell apart and rotted, then that might have been when they put the other sign up. Not sure when that was exactly, but anyway. What about solar? Then there would be no electricity bill.
It's funny that you say that. Margaret and I were just talking about that this morning. I think that would be great, both in terms of, you're right, you'd save you some cost. But more the statement that it makes.
Yes.
That this is another way where we're trying to go carbon neutral. That would definitely be. I was afraid of cluttering the project up too much, but we could definitely research that. And I should say as well, there is no rush to do this. My goal is to do it once and do it right. So as we kind of gather information like this, now that I realize there are steps, I can't just do whatever I please. To get some information, like it would be okay if people would be comfortable with a solar panel to power it. I think that would be awesome.
And then,
I've been lobbying for solar at my school forever.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday soon, huh?
Maybe someday.
And I think that the more that you stay within the guidelines, I think would be helpful and be more positive for residents in town. Just my opinion. And I think that would be in your favor. And I tell you, it would, if you spent less on the sign, the way things are going today, I think, in my opinion, having safety, looking at safety, using the money for other items that might make it a more safe Berlin Memorial. I guess that would be my 2 cents.
Sure. The standard sign was not a whole lot less expensive. And I will tell you that we got these bids, boy, I bet it's 9 to 12 months ago.
Yeah.
Because this was actually, it's got to be more than that, because it went to town meeting as a capital item.
Right.
Not last town meeting, but town meeting before. So
Okay.
we may, by necessity, be looking at something smaller. But I don't want to do anything without, yes, John, go ahead and put some kind of a sign there.
I don't think my issue is where it being on town property. I think the ZBA did mention that they would prefer it was 7 feet back from the road, I believe. And
that was easy.
And then the side, the size of the size of it. And if you did use solar, then maybe that would help as far as the cost of electric, and also the no LEDs. And that kind of thing.
All stuff we can look at, absolutely.
Okay. I don't want to monopolize here, so Peg and Scott, please pipe up.
Absolutely. You know me, I never lack for questions. So John or Margaret, might be a combination question. So who's going to pay for the cost of electricity? You know, if it's going to be used for town announcements, but also school announcements, who's footing the bill?
It's the school's sign and the school's responsibility.
Okay.
We do it a lot now, like my newsletter includes town events.
Well, it would essentially the taxpayers would be paying that.
Well, yeah, it doesn't really the end.
Yeah.
The town's paying no matter who, which
Right.
checking account is coming from, but
Right.
it's the school's responsibility. They have to go into our budget.
So for the, you know, people who might not be familiar with this, you know, John, were there any negative input from the residents regarding light pollution, which you know, talked about? I know that you said that it would shut down when you guys are done with school, but what about the summer? You know, would Berlin then assume responsibility of putting up correctly spelled information on the sign as needed?
I'm around all summer. It's
You know,
a-
I'm sensing a pattern here. Highway won't give me the keys to the blinky sign, and you're not forking over the keys to that sign. So
I will-
you
I
know, I'm starting to
happily
take it
give you the
personally.
keys. I just don't want you to feel obligated.
Oh, no, it would be fine.
And you got to spell things correctly. If you take the
Oh.
keys, then you're in charge of spelling.
All right, well, we might have to talk.
I'll help her. I'll help her.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I was wondering, so Scott, Tim Wheeler's in the audience, and I was wondering if we could potentially promote him to talk a little bit about planning board feedback on this.
Sure, I'm fine with that. And while we're doing that, I'll just, my 2 cents being, I love the granite posts because the wood won't rot if it's made of granite. And I love the bluebird and the sign of the part of the top. So if we could somehow keep that, I think that would be cool. And then Tim, you're up. So if you'd like to have a few comments from the planning board, that would be great.
Sure, thanks. I guess the planning board's position, and we sent a letter to the ZBA, which we forwarded to Margaret earlier today. In 917.1 of the zoning bylaws, it does provide for governmental exemptions from a lot of these issues, but I guess the feeling of the planning board was that the exemption ought not to be used without regard to the precedent it might set. I mean, if we're saying a sign that was internally lit and larger than allowed and also perhaps had a digital component were to be allowed for this educational use, then I think the ZBA is put in an awkward position if other religious or educational uses in town wanted to put up a similar type of sign. And I think the thought of the board was that governmental uses ought to feel obligated to comply with the same rules and regulations that the general public would be expected to comply with. So an externally lit solar powered option, there is the opportunity to have a larger sign for municipal uses and educational uses. And I think the building inspector mentioned the additional message component that could be added to a sign. So you certainly end up with a larger sign than would be allowed normally because of the nature of the use. So we felt that those options, similar to what Chris, I think, was talking about, ought to be investigated a little more before there's a final decision on this.
Ted, that was a concern for us as well. I think, you know, you're kind of where we are with this process. The challenge for me is I can't get a ton of zoning board feedback without having permission to start the process.
Right. So I'd say it might pay to come and talk to the planning board, because we have a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to brainstorm and throw around ideas and talk about options that the ZBA just doesn't have. So, you know, I can ask Tom to include you on our agenda for our next meeting if you wanted to, and we could,
That'd be great.
yeah, throw around some ideas about what the options would be. Because I mean, we agree. I mean, we want to see a good sign there, and it does serve a public use that's valuable. So we don't want to squash this, but we also want to try to toe the line a little bit and be consistent with what we'd expect other businesses in town to do. That exception is in there for exemption is in there for municipal and educational uses, but you know, I think emergency options and stuff. I mean, I think we need to. It ought to be a high bar that we set before we jump over that.
I mean, one of the bars could be that the town rules were not met when the idea of LED signs weren't a thing at the time, and now LED sign, how we might update our rules to take into account what LED signs can and can't do, because some can be very tasteful and not overly bright, and some can be obnoxious and small. So I don't know where we'd want to go in the town to have rules that allow businesses to have signs that take advantage of modern technology without actually, you know, blinding us all with light as we go down roads, or adding too much light position or gaudiness to the town.
No, and I that's a good point, and I think the board has talked about the technology that's advanced. We talked about that a little bit with the Riverbridge folks, and we did experiment in that overlay district with one internally lit sign, which the board regrets that as we look at it now, because the signs that, like the Shell sign and the Dunkin' Donuts sign, which are externally lit and of the, you know, proportion to the size that's
Right.
appropriate for the zone, seem to work pretty well. And the cafe signs are a disaster in our mind anyway. So
I think that the issue in front of us, at least at the moment, luckily, is we don't have to decide the dimensions of the sign is how we feel about putting the sign on town property, with the understanding that the schools would pay for sort of any electrical usage that a sign would such have.
Unless it's solar, and there's no electrical usage except the sun.
There's still the maintenance of the devices and, you know, the maintenance of the devices that generate and store the electricity, but yes.
So the board has two options with placing the sign. The request was to place the sign on the South Common side, close to the utility pole. The former sign, as you know, was on the other side of the driveway, on the school side of the driveway. And I think if I remember the zoning hearing accurately, zoning requested that John come to the select board's meeting for consent to place a sign on town property before coming back to the ZBA on July 13th. And Tim, your next meeting is on the 21st, correct? The planning board meeting?
it's been jumped to the 28th now.
28th.
And I thought what I'll do is if you could send me John's email or send John my email, then we can communicate and I can get him on the agenda for the 28th.
Okay. Will do.
And then, so a motion to allow it on town properties, you know, as a starting step, understanding that there's still approvals needed from other places. The school's going to pay for the electricity, and that they're likely to, we would like them to follow setbacks. And if there's other conditions you want to put on it at the point, I think could be in order. It's about as directive as I can be as chair.
That's good. So a follow-up, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just gonna say, so would the motion be to approve the sign on town property with trying to stay within the bylaws as much as possible? Does that work?
I think for something to be worked out still with the planning and school and ZBA, I think you're right, as much as possible and practical, I think makes a lot of good sense.
I think John's been around long enough to realize that with the lighting issues around the school and that kind of thing, that, you know, they would have to be very careful about, you know, the
Yeah.
light.
I mean, I think all of us are going into this with the best intent. I think the school really wants to be a good partner with the town. I think planning board wants to have something nice there that meets the school's needs as well. And so I believe that people will find a solution that everyone can work with. And I think we could be the sort of first domino to help sort of get us down that path because all we need to do is say, sure, put it on our land, because we don't have to actually come up with a design that makes everybody happy, which I think is the harder part of this.
Well, and ZBA was not able to take a vote or to go forward with this because they can't work with the lessee of a property. They have to work with the owners, which is us, the town. So that's why John is here
Right.
tonight.
And so once I think John and the planning board coach, then yeah, it looks like that one of us will have to go to ZBA to actually do to be the applicant.
Yeah, well, it could be, but I mean, originally, I think Steve was the applicant but he did need permission, I guess, from the town, which is what we're doing tonight.
Yep.
John, I appreciate you being here. with-
Oh, no, my pleasure.
Thanks, John. So is there a motion out there?
Yeah, Chris made one
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Then
and
I'll-
I second it.
Good. Is there more discussion?
Mhm.
Seeing none then, we're ready for a vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone eye.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Best of luck, John.
Thank you. We'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
everybody.
John, talk
Thanks,
to-
Margaret.
Tim.
Take care.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay. I think that takes care of our hearings for this evening, and we can move on to the town administrator report.
Okay, picking up where I left off earlier, Chris and I met with the VHB engineers who are doing the preliminary cost estimate on the Northbrook project at Riverbridge in its entirety. We talked about a timeline for the end product, for the report. They're working to have a preliminary draft available in time for the select board's August 8th meeting. And then they are shooting for before September or the start of September for the final report. I understand also that Riverbridge is working with their own people on preliminary cost estimate as well. I don't have any further information on that at this point. The advanced life support study. Tomorrow I am going to be sending that to the select board for review. You'll have a good 2 weeks to review it before MRI comes into your June 27th meeting to do a presentation on the ALS study. I think you've probably seen the emails. I am back to working on the Berlin Memorial School lease agreement. I think where we last left it was pretty close to being able to be finalized. And I got feedback today from Bob Conry at the district, and I intend to continue that. Last week I finished an IFB draft, invitation for bids draft for the Recreation Committee for the Recreation Court upgrades. I have not gotten any feedback on that. Next up are going to be the facilities assessment and town office roof replacement. The town administrator screening committee will be meeting virtually with MRI this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. That meeting is not subject to the open meeting law, so it is not going to be recorded or broadcast for future, or rebroadcast. The national opioid settlement, the town has now registered in the portal. That portal is going to allow us to receive electronic funds transfers from the settlement. And put on that access to that portal. Folks with access to that portal include Mary, June, Dennis, and Victoria. And I have recommended that Victoria take on being charged with the expenditures from that fund, because this directly pertains to future social services provision. The next thing I had is that I attended the Neshoba Regional Dispatch District Administrative Board meeting last week, and tomorrow I'm also going to circulate to the board a report that was done by the Collins Center on a strategic plan development. It is a very well done report, and it coincides very closely with a new executive director's notes on what she has found in entering the district. The town is very lucky to be part of the Neshoba district with the executive director that you have now. She is on top of things. She's fantastic, and she's going to run a really tight operation there. The next thing I have is the U.S. Department of Transportation is going to be opening a number of grants through the infrastructure bill that was funded. It's a $1 billion infrastructure bill that was funded. One of the applications that's currently open is Safe Streets and Roads for All. It's a program that has two rounds. The first is the development of action plans, and the second is implementation grants for construction of infrastructure. Mostly, the whole goal of the program is to create safer roads. One of the first things that was noted I found this very interesting. One of the first things that was noted in the webinar I attended was that fatalities are 3 times higher on local roads nationally than they are on interstates. So their goal is to not only capture the larger roads, but to focus on local roads as well. So the first thing that came to mind when I went to this webinar is that we had asked CMRPC to do a Route 62 corridor study. So I've asked Tim Wheeler to follow up with the transportation planners there to see where they're at on that study, and that would give us that would lay the groundwork for possible comprehensive safety action plan. I think those are the big things I have for today.
Sorry, Peg or Chris, do you have questions?
3. Okay, let's see if I can answer.
Peg.
Didn't talk
Okay,
that
ready?
Gearing up.
What?
Go for it. Go for it,
All
Peg.
right. Town cleanup update. Where
Oh,
are we? What's going on? What's left to be done?
Okay.
Done?
Peg, I'm inviting you personally to when I go to the old fire station with Fred. We do have to go, and we have to mark items for disposal. A lot of departments, I mentioned last week that I've received a lot of disposition lists or supply disposal lists where they've recorded what they've tossed and why they've tossed it. There are a number of things that have been put down in the hearing room at the end of the hall that might still have value or use for some people. If those aren't claimed within, I don't know, probably within the next week, we're going to have department heads meeting tomorrow. If things in there aren't claimed in the next week, we're going to be looking at disposing of those items as well. Things like, small file cabinets might have some dents on them. It's like a scratch and dent area. So that's where we're at right now. I have not been able to get to the other buildings yet, so I can't tell you if there's been any progress, but I'm going to be scheduling a date to go over there to the old fire station with Fred.
So can I bring a spray paint can and we can just like mark things and whiz them out the window?
Well, I think their intent is to bring a dumpster over there, and we could actually just have enlist the highway crew to help us get rid of. There's broken old velvet couches, and at least it was last time I went. So yeah, I think they want to move the dumpster over there.
Okay. All right. Question number 2. Did a letter ever go out to Concom on the land that was given to us that we said okay with? You had mentioned it last week that Concom would be responsible for fees. I just want to make sure that they have it in writing.
So the thing that went to Concom, Mary actually sent an email during your meeting, at that meeting, and memorializing that Concom would be responsible for the fees. The response we got was that the chair had to check with Louise, who does the minutes for Concom, to see if they had actually voted that already, and if not, they're going to have to vote that. But they have been informed.
All right. And then the last one, I know, Margaret, you talked about shared streets, and for some reason, the end of June is coming into mind. Do we have any leftover money from that? And what do we do with it? And how quickly do we have to assign it to something?
Yes, so that absolutely must be spent with a final report and any reimbursement given to the state by June 30th. So Fred was actually on a mission to buy supplies for upgrading the gazebo, given the gazebo a facelift. They're looking at doing the floorboards in the gazebo with the remaining, I want to say $2,700. It could be plus or minus. But yeah, they're going to be buying replacement floorboards, and he's going to use, I believe he's going to use his seasonal laborers with some help from Highway to actually get that done.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Those are my three. Thank you, Margaret.
Sure.
I'm good for now. Some of the stuff that I had will come up in other agenda items. Chris?
Oh, no, I'm good
Okay.
too.
I think then we can move on to old business. We have use of ARPA funds. We just spent 30,000. Confirming we only had like 300,000 of what we thought would be about 900,000 in, right?
We had half of it in, half of the 900 something thousand, we had half of it in, but you had already committed for
Yep.
half of the social services portion of
Yep.
Victoria's position. And there was a very small amount spent on the initial audit that allowed
Yep.
us to spend all our money on local recoup.
And so when we talk about how much of that ARPA money we've already spent, how many years of social services have we held back enough to go through 2026 when we have to have it spent by? Or just
Yes, June has calculated, June is actually doing a calculation going out all the years, so we are sure that we have that reserve. What she's suggested, and I actually agree, is that each year it would be wise. I don't see the social services need going away, but
Right.
it might be a good idea each year to incrementally put on the budget a little more rather than using ARPA funds and having the shock in FY27.
right. And I think that's an extraordinary use. We're not planning on using it for staffing on a regular basis, but that was such a need that was such exacerbated by COVID. I know that we jumped right on that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so we did just spend another 30,000.
Yep.
And it looks like we have two sort of more that have bubbled up and are ready. And I think the Lincoln Street School or Old West School bubbles up a third one. But are any of these sort of ready for us to potentially set aside some money for or approve?
I think Peg can speak to the food pantry door.
Which is the lower
Yeah,
door
this-
town.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are on my list. So Margaret, that's awesome about the gazebo for Fred, because when I plan on going to capital planning in a couple weeks, one of them was to make the gazebo ADA requirement, which I was going to back down on because it was a hefty price tag of somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000. So at least if we can get the gazebo kind of sort of up to par, then maybe that falls into something. But I still want to talk to them on ADA parking spaces down at South Common, because with the soccer field being used, with the baseball field being used, we don't have any. So
And the
that's
recreation
even-
court upgrades only have gravel.
Yeah,
up to the
so,
court.
yep, so that's a consideration. I had forwarded to you the Board of Health, they approved my kind of like work statement, I guess, in regard to the septic for 1870. Margaret, I know that you had reached out to Evan Carloni to get his initial input on that, so was wondering just where that stands, because if I'm gonna bombard capital planning with potential money for ADA parking spaces, and I can like throw in a couple other ones, you know, at
I
least. it's
apologize. I
something-
haven't done any work on that since last week. But I
Okay,
can
no
reach out
worries.
to Evan again and ask if he could give a proposal.
Okay, and then the skinny on the door, so Fred was kind enough to get me the dimensions on the doors that are needed at the town office. The locks are fine, it's really the doors. We need to replace several of them, but I did not get costs from him. And given bringing on new people and the 85 list of things that Fred needs to do, you know, I'll wait at Margaret's request for him to put a full proposal together. I mean, I can look up doors on Lowe's, but you know what? I could go really high and I could go really low. And I know that there needs to be a bar on the door as well. So I'm not going to guess and look silly and bringing them out to capital planning when either I'm way off either way on that one. So that one's flicking around, but not a lot going on it. And there was one on the list. I started to go through the list the other week, and it was down towards the very bottom about website, the town website. Chris, you and I were together when the website got changed. I don't remember a lot of input on it. It was just basically, here is the town website, you know, congratulations. The photos up there are not Berlin photos, they're just stock photos. I looked at Bolton's, and God, they've got some slick stuff on there. So I don't know if that's something else that we could pursue to do some sort of, you know, planning, that we'd have to put together a survey. Maybe we talk to, you know, you talk to the folks who use it the most, the department heads. You know, I noticed on the safety that Tom Galvin is still listed for EMS for safety in town. Ken is not even mentioned on there. You know, so there's a lot of updates that need to happen. And I think since our webmaster guy left a couple years ago and it's been pushed to the committees, it hasn't bubbled up anywhere near to a priority. But again, in the age of communication, you know, I think we need to do this. I have zero idea how much it's going to cost. And I don't think that we can figure out a cost until we can figure out what we want the website to do. So, you know, it's kind of like the sign at the school. Everyone wants the sign, but we need to figure out how to get the sign there. So, you know, wanted to bring it up and figure out, you know, obviously don't need an answer tonight, but how we can start to gather data to talk to a website person on A, updating everything and getting us current, and then B, maintaining the website, because I think that's where we start to fall down.
I think there's, I mean, I thought everything on the list were priority projects at some point. I mean, we could spend a bunch of time. I was hoping to potentially, I thought there were 2 or 3 that we could actually potentially approve tonight to move forward. It sounds like the doors are not ready yet. The mold
Nope.
mitigation for West School is, do we have quotes? Because I thought the emails imply like every day we wait, this problem gets worse.
Well, that's true. It's absolutely true. We're kind of in between a rock and a hard place at the moment, because we've got the appraiser who's come out, who is going to be given some numbers to our insurer. We expect to receive some coverage under insurance. We don't know how much, and they've yet to do a mold, the mold sampling in the building. So, I mean, we could move forward on mold mitigation. We just don't know how much insurance is
Right.
covering. So we're trying to stay on that.
This has been sitting like this for a very long time.
We
I
need to
don't
use the
another
building.
week or two.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, how much do we use that as a town? How much do we
We
use
don't
that
use it
building?
much. We have to understand it. It's the last remaining original school for the town. It has definitely some historic value to the town as being the
I
only
did
one.
actually have a suggestion from someone
Yeah.
that perhaps we do some kind of a housing project, but have Assabet do the work. Of course, they wouldn't do the mold remediation, but they might be able to do the work. And maybe it's a low middle income home.
So,
So
rehab the
that
building.
sort of leads to what was my, in February, we should do this immediately, ARPA funding request, which is a facilities assessment. So we know what buildings we have and how it might be the best use of them, and which ones we might be able to get rid of. I've been
Well-
dying to find a process that gets rid of that hideous looking brown thing in South Common and the building, the metal structures that seem to lean against it to make a very much more attractive entrance to South Common.
Well, we have the process. We just have to go to CPC. I think we just need to do the legwork. You know, that's the whole thing.
We need to have, I think the town, the walkthrough is one thing, but I think the town needs a professional facilities
Yeah.
assessment to really understand the scope of the work needed in buildings, whether all buildings need to be retained or some can be disposed of or reused in other manners and things like that. And, you know, it's on me that I didn't get that I haven't gotten the facilities assessment RFP done yet. I am going to work on that this week, but
And so
I'm
what
trying to
is
get
the
'em- I'm
process?
trying to
Do we do
crank 'em out.
RFP before we put it them, because it seems that like, we seem to go in this catch-22 where we don't approve the project because we don't have the RFP. We don't write the RFP because we don't have the money. What is the process that gets a facilities assessment done or started and funded and someone signed on a piece of paper to get this going?
we need an estimate, an estimated
Mhm.
cost in order for the board to approve the ARPA funding for this.
And so is
Right.
that on your list of things I've done before July 1st?
It is, I believe.
I mean, and and Scott, I understand it's one of the oldest buildings in town, but you know what? If it's not used, kind of like with Chris's suggestion, if it's not used and it sits there, that's great, but why are we paying for a building that
I
is
wanted in
just sitting
February to
there?
do a facilities assessment so we can have answers to these questions that might allow me to just say, sure, let's sell it to someone else. Let's give it to someone. Let's tear it down.
Scott,
There's
it's
several
number,
institutions
it's
that
number
go that
2
fast.
on the projects that won't be finalized in FY '22, started in FY '23. And it's highlighted to be
Right.
done.
Well, I mean, there's a process we need to go
Yeah.
through, and we agreed we were going to go through this process. And that's what we're going to do.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to say, poof here, spend money. But we need a process because there's competing entities that are looking for that money as well. So unfortunately, do the work, follow the process, yay or nay, and then, on to the next one.
Which we didn't feel that way 45 minutes ago when we approved $30,000 to do the survey for the Cedar Hill, which I think is a great project. I'm very glad we supported it. But just when we find projects and their priorities, we decided their priorities and just do it and don't stand on the process that delays it further.
Oh, so you
It's
want
still
the
gonna
board's support. I'm hearing that the entire board supports doing a facilities assessment. It's just moving. Is that what I'm hearing?
I
Am I
think so,
hearing
but I
correctly?
thought we've heard that since February. And so, it's
Well,
5 months later and we're no further along. And now we have, because if we had someone go into the building, the Legion Hall, 4 months ago to check things, we might have caught the mold even earlier.
No, I mean, we can shoulda, coulda, woulda, but we also have to be cognizant of Margaret's time. How many items was on her list to get done? And to be fair, we reviewed the ARPA list and we shrunk it and then we never revisited it again. It just kind of sat there. So
I apologize. I was away for a couple of months there and I'm trying to catch up to the best of my ability. So we'll keep things moving, trying to crank them out.
So I think that, so it doesn't look like they were doing any voting, any more ARPA spending tonight.
no.
And then, so next agenda item is back to that sort of, again, that list that you just referenced of the to-do list, both so we can be cognizant of what is and is not sort of doable by the end of the fiscal year. Because you're right, time is still limited. Are there comments from folks about what, is there anything that people feel should be moved on to the end of year? Knowing that if you add something to needs to be done by end of year, you probably should also suggest something that needs to come off the things that need to be done by the end of the year.
No, I only had a question about the information you'd given us, Margaret, and about the 2-week separation dates.
Yes,
And
I am mandated to take 2 weeks away. I have to have a 2-week separation. So that's why.
But are those dates flexible is my question, I
Yeah,
guess.
those dates are flexible. Well,
Okay, no?
those dates are flexible. It could be earlier. And so if my last day is June 30th, then my 2 weeks off would be July 1 to whatever the 2 weeks are there.
So July 4th and July 11th, Margaret, would be your next 2 weeks.
So you can only work for 2 weeks after your last day.
I could work for 2 weeks full-time after June 30th. And then I'd have to take 2 weeks. I'd have to be separated for 2 weeks and then I couldn't come back full-time. I'd be
Right.
prohibited from.
I
doing
just
that.
wondered if it could be pushed out those 2 weeks. Doesn't sound like it. No.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
I can't.
Well, I know
can
it's a, go
No,
ahead, Margaret, apologies.
no, I can informally communicate with June. I have to be careful, but
I
I
know.
can quietly help in the background.
Well, I know that it's a new business item and I, just like skipped over 4 things, but do we really want to cancel next week's meeting? It sounds like we have a lot to do in the limited time that Margaret is here, whether it's to look at ARPA, it's to look at goals and objectives, it's to look on what's Margaret's list, to try and get through. I would hate, just because it's a holiday on Monday, for us not to meet and take care of something or some things.
Yeah, I feel some of the work, because Margaret has so much to do, I think we should not meet as a select board so that she spends less time sort of at this meeting, preparing for this meeting, following up for this meeting, and get to some of the things that are on the list that we wanted to do by June 30th.
And I don't mind if you guys meet, but I would, if you're going to talk about something that should include all 3 of us, I'd like to be here, and I can't be here on the 21st.
Could I propose, you have the to-do list in front of you.
Mhm.
So, based on conversations the board has had, the facilities assessment clearly needs to move forward. I also have to issue an RFP for audit services. I want to get that done to try to get an auditor in place for the next audit cycle. We have the town office's roof replacement. I want to get that done, issued. The town office's air handler, there's a big question mark as to whether or not we have funds available to replace the air handler, or additional funds would be necessary. And we've got the town office's HD meeting room upgrades and the recreation court upgrades that all need to be done. Everything else on this list, even though many items are highlighted, I would put those as the top priorities. And then there's the other projects. Those can be done separately, but these are just the procurements that I'm talking about now.
So which item are we
I
on?
struggle to remove
On
anything
the agenda.
from the list of procurements that need to get done. Those are all projects that
Yeah.
need to move forward.
Chris, we're on TA responsibilities from July 1 to new TA.
Okay, well, we started talking about the meeting and I didn't know if I missed something.
Oh,
Okay.
The Community Preservation Act Committee is going to be looking for a CPA assistant whose responsibilities in part will be to do procurements. CPA doubled the amount of procurements we have to do. So that's going to help in the long term. But right now, I've got to get these off the ground, or the town, we have to get these off the ground.
So, Margaret, do we, with the, never-ending list of things that unfortunately fall on your shoulders and we're unable to help, would you recommend that we make a decision tonight as to your proposal from last week to keep you around, whether it's the first couple
I'd
weeks of July or
appreciate
the
that.
last couple?
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, just so I know where I stand and what needs to be accomplished and what we can actually, what we can actually figure out, what's
Right.
going to be done in the time that we have. So,
Correct. Because we're also going to need to talk about timing. Unfortunately, it's end of year for June, so I'm sure that is a time where she probably pulls her hair out 85 ways. You know, we're gonna have a couple week gap until new TA arrives, and then we gotta figure out a plan how to get TA up to speed. You know, with you, you were here, we just kind of like, dumped everything on you and kept visiting. I think we need to do a better job of new TA and set.
I am willing to volunteer and be available to the new town administrator when they start to help them, along and really get situated. So this is entirely up to the board, and I just ask for a decision so we can all plan ahead.
Your June, I know we've jumped for a couple of documents, but the June 10th document that outlines the July 1st to whenever new TA is hired.
Yes.
Process.
Yes.
I mean, it's not that different than what we discussed last week. I did raise a couple of questions. I think you've satisfactorily answered the questions. I totally agree with June that sometimes it is more work to train a temp for a few week project than it is to find other resources or just do it a little bit yourself. And so I think that has been thought about enough that I personally, I like the proposal as it's been put together. Do others have comments on it?
I agree with you, Scott.
Yeah, we need Margaret here as long as we can without causing undue harm to her, retirement and everything else that needs to
And health.
happen. Yep, and health. Yeah, Margaret, I don't want you to go, but we need to get as much out of your head as possible. But at the same time, not making you work 80 hours a week for the next few weeks as well. So we need to be cognizant of that.
I'm going to be here in some way, shape, or form, however long needed. So if the board is okay with this, I can draw up a simple contract extension for exactly what number 1 says. And
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And we
I
can
think
deal with
it's
the,
fine. Should we take a motion on that plan? Just because there's other things, just because your potential cost in it. There's, a little bit more for Joe and a little bit more for Amy. I think if there's a tiny bit of extra overtime in there that happens because it is a tiny cost savings, that we'll find a way to make it work.
I expect there's going to be a more significant cost savings than this, but I wanted to at least be conservative at the start, so.
So you're looking for a motion to,
Approve the suggested TA transition plan.
so moved.
Seconded.
Then without seeing need for more discussion, let's vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Don't I?
Okay, thank you. And on the meeting on the 27th, I'll have the contract extension ready and can be signed. It would be good to go.
And so, we'll get back. That's under new business. So let's move on to the review of the draft event permit policy and permit application for the noise bylaw.
Peg, do you just want to discuss your proposed edits with the board?
Yeah, I mean, if, what was that? I think I just cut somebody off. I apologize.
No, I was continuing to blab. I just haven't received any comments other than yours, so
I'll just say that I started going through the document that was put in there that you did, Peg.
Yep.
And I haven't had a chance. I haven't had a chance to go through it, so, but go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, Chris, obviously it's just not my comments. I'd love for you and Scott, to be able to just not take a look at them tonight. So if we have to shift this to our next meeting, then shift it. I'd prefer to have more eyes on it. These were just the questions, and I bet if I looked at it again tonight, I'd come up with 10 more. So, look at my comments, that are out there, and then we can always discuss it for the 27th if you'd like.
That's fine with me, Scott. I mean, I just, I spent all day doing homework for tonight.
Right.
And that was the one thing that I didn't get done.
Yeah, I actually looked at the other copy, but I didn't get to the Peg's red line. I'm sorry. So let's put this on the 29th. I think in wordsmithing is not my strong suit. I gladly defer to others, and I think I could read the same document 15 times and have 15 different edits each time, many of which would contradict the previous one. So I try to just assume some good intents and try not to wordsmith, but that doesn't, I mean, Peg, you've raised some really good things in here, and then I think made several sections, even in my quick scannings of it, sort of clearer to understand. And I think, that's a good thing. So let's put this back to the trades. I think we're on the right path.
Okay.
Because it could be a couple more months before we can do this anyway, because the Attorney General hasn't approved our bylaw.
Yeah. So comments on Peg's red line then at this point would be welcomed.
Okay, so if I was to send my things to you, Margaret, then you could, put them in for the next meeting.
Yes, or send them to Mary, and Mary can put them into the next meeting too. So, or both of us.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So new business. As long as I'm still in the meeting.
Are we?
Oh,
yes.
I was planning on looking at canceling sort of next week's meeting, as I said earlier, so that Margaret have a little bit more time to get some of her to-do list done, and because Chris can't make the meeting anyway. I think as we did last time, I wouldn't have us formally cancel the meeting until Margaret and I get a chance to sort of do agenda setting on Thursday to make sure something doesn't come up that requires us or makes a meeting more necessary. I don't think that requires a vote. And so we did TA notice of intent to appoint. So that was our new business.
Yeah. I'm going to recommend that the board only go into executive session for reason number 7 on your executive session minutes.
Yep. And so we're going to jump into executive session to approve and potentially release of eligible executive session meetings from fiscal year 20, I think it's 21, but 22, 20, 17, and 16. We're going to start cutting into some of that backlog.
I'm adding 21
and then we
to
will,
that too.
right, and then we will, but we're allowed to adjourn from executive session because we have no further business. And we'll adjourn from executive session.
And we'll stop.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
And then
sorry.
I have to get the formal roll call vote that it's okay to go in executive session. So Hawkins, aye.
Keep 5.
Don't I?
Okay.
Great.
Wait a second.
No, not yet.
Not
Oh.
yet.
No. All right.
Oh no, I'm all confused.
I think we can.
So motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Sure, Hawkins, aye.
Keep 5.
Stone eye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.